$85. That's what a Seiko SNK809 cost brand new. Automatic movement, 37mm steel case. The watch that put more people into mechanical watches than almost anything else ever made. Today, you'll pay more than that for a used one, if you can find it. Because Seiko discontinued it. Another line on this list was killed off in 2019 and replaced by something with half the water resistance and a higher price tag. And the one sitting at number 1 is still on the shelf right now, still selling, still carrying the same name it always did. And it is not the same thing at all. These are 6 Seiko lines that have collapsed. And if you're about to buy your first mechanical watch, you need to understand what happened here. Because when a brand walks away from the bottom of its own range, it isn't the company that loses something. It's you, in what you can afford, in what's still available, and in what $100 will actually buy you. No brand loyalty here, and nobody is paying me to say any of this. I've owned Seikos. I'll probably own more. And I want to be straight with you before we start. Seiko is not in trouble. That's not what this is. The company is doing perfectly well. Arguably better than it has in years, in revenue terms. Grand Seiko is thriving. The upper collections are excellent. This is about direction of travel, and specifically about what got left behind. Everything here comes from the same place. Seiko's own discontinuations and product announcements, documented retail prices before and after, reporting from the watch press, and the resale market, which is the only honest referendum there is. Where I couldn't verify something, I've left it out, or told you it's disputed. Let's start with a line that vanished so quietly, almost nobody noticed. Number 6, the SNXS and SNK dress series. This one gets number 6 because it went without a fight, without an announcement, and without most people ever realizing it was gone. The SNXS and the small SNK dress references were the plainest watches Seiko made. Steel case, small dial, no bezel, no complications, no story. 36, 37 millimeters. The kind of watch you'd wear under a shirt cuff and never think about. And I'll say this properly, because it matters. These weren't bad watches. They were the opposite. They were the automatic dress watch for people who had never owned an automatic anything, at a price that made the decision easy. Here's the problem. Nobody defended them. The SKX had a modding community. The SNK field watches had memes and a cult following. These had nothing. No personality to rally around. No enthusiast base to make noise when they disappeared. So when Seiko started narrowing the bottom of its range, this went first, and it went silently. Now I'm going to be careful here, because Seiko does not publish a discontinuation list, and I'm not going to pretend I have documentation of a decision that was never announced. What I can tell you is what the market shows. These references have become progressively harder to find at retail, and where they surface at prices well above what they once cost. What that means for you is simple. If you wanted the cheapest way into an automatic dress watch from a major brand, that door has narrowed considerably, and there is no direct replacement at the same price. Number 5, the SNZG line. Now this one has numbers, and the numbers are the argument. The SNZG was Seiko's larger field watch, 42 millimeters, day date, that unmistakable military-inspired dial, and a case that could take genuine abuse. It sold for somewhere between $130 and $150. For a lot of people, it was the sensible upgrade from the smaller SNK. Same idea, more wrist presence, still comfortably under $200. Sadly, it's on the way out, and what replaced it tells you everything about the direction. The successor in the field category is the SRPG line. It's a good watch, I want to be fair about that. Updated movement, better finishing, more color options. It's around $200. So run the comparison honestly. The old SNK805 sits at $90 to $100. The SNZG 09 at $130 to $150. The new SRPG at roughly $200. That's not inflation, that's repositioning. And here's the part that should bother you. The movement did improve, hacking, hand winding, both genuine upgrades. but the price roughly doubled from the SNK, and the water resistance and the basic proposition did not double with it. You're paying substantially more for a watch that does the same job, slightly better, in a category Seiko used to own outright at half the money. Number 4, the SNK809 and SNK805. And here's the one people actually get emotional about. The SNK Field Watch is, without much exaggeration, the most influential cheap watch of the last 20 years. 37 millimeters, canvas strap, automatic movement you could see through the case back. $85 for the 809, and the 789 was closer to $67. It is the watch that taught an entire generation what an automatic movement feels like. The rotor spinning as your arm moves, the second hand sweeping instead of ticking. Ask serious collectors what they started with, and a startling number of them name this. It's also the most memed watch in the hobby, which is its own kind of affection. It's discontinued. And here is the number that makes the point better than anything I could say. That $85 watch now trades used for $150 and upward when you can find one. A discontinued entry-level watch that costs more secondhand than it did new. That does not happen because a watch got worse. That happens because demand stayed and supply stopped. Now, the fair bit, because it needs saying. Seiko had reasons. 37 millimeters was considered unsellably small for years. The 7S26 movement inside it is old technology, and margins at $85 are brutal for a company with Seiko's cost base. But look at what happened next. The market didn't move on. The market went and paid a premium for the discontinued one, and then micro brands stepped in to fill the gap Seiko had opened. That's not a product failing. That's a company misreading its own customers. Number 3, the 7S26 movement. Now we move from watches to the thing inside them, and this is where it stops being about individual models. The 7S26 is the automatic movement that powered the affordable Seiko for decades. 21 jewels, no hacking, no hand winding, and accuracy that was loose by any objective standard. It was also indestructible, cheap to produce at enormous scale. And the reason Seiko could sell a real mechanical watch for under $100 while everyone else charged 4 times that. It's being phased out, replaced by the 4R family. And I need to correct something here, because you'll hear it stated badly. The 4R is a better movement. That is not in dispute. It hacks. It hand winds. It's more accurate. Anyone telling you Seiko downgraded the movement is wrong, and I'm not going to repeat it just because it makes a cleaner story. The issue is what the replacement costs to build. The 7S26 was the cheapest reliable automatic in mass production anywhere. The 4R is better and costs more, and every watch it goes into inherits that. There is a well-worn line in collector circles that when the 7S26 stock runs out, that's the end of genuinely cheap Seiko mechanicals. And the pricing of the replacements suggests that's roughly right. So this isn't a line collapsing. It's the foundation under 4 of the other 5 entries in this video being removed. What it means for you is that the sub-$100 mechanical Seiko is not coming back. Not because Seiko can't, because the part that made it possible is no longer in production. Number 2, the SKX. Everybody knew this one was coming, and it still deserves the position. The SKX07 and SKX09 were Seiko's entry-level dive watches, and they were tool watches in the genuine sense. 200 meters of water resistance, screw-down crown, ISO dive certification, the actual standard, not a marketing claim, and a case that had become the single most modified watch platform in the entire hobby. In 2019, Seiko discontinued them, all versions. Just before they went, retail was around €340 on rubber, $360 on the steel bracelet. Used examples were easy to find between $150 and $250. Then the delisting happened. The available supply shrank fast, and prices went up and stayed up. Now the replacement, and this is where I want to be precise, because it's usually described unfairly in both directions. The Seiko 5 Sports SKX series is not a bad watch. It's more wearable. It has a better movement. and the range of colors is genuinely good. It is also not a dive watch. 100 meters of water resistance instead of 200, no screw-down crown, no ISO diver's certification, and a higher price than the watch it replaced. Read that back. Seiko took its entry-level dive watch, removed the 3 things that made it a dive watch, and charged more. Every one of those changes is defensible individually. Together, they mean the affordable, properly certified Seiko diver no longer exists, and the thing wearing its name is something else. If you want that watch today, you're buying used, at a premium, from a supply that only shrinks. Number 1. The Seiko 5. And here it is. The one still on the shelf. The Seiko 5 is not discontinued. You can walk into a shop today and buy one. It is arguably Seiko's most recognizable name after the brand itself. That's exactly why it's number 1. Because the Seiko 5 was never really a product line. It was a promise. And the promise had 5 parts. Automatic movement, day-date display, water resistance, a recessed crown at 4 o'clock, and a durable case and bracelet. Any watch meeting those 5 criteria earned the badge, and underneath the 5 criteria was a 6th thing nobody wrote down. It would be affordable. That was the whole point. The Seiko 5 was the watch that proved you did not need money to own real watchmaking. In 2019, Seiko restructured the line into Seiko 5 Sports and repositioned it upward. Prices climbed, notably from around 2021, in what the watch press described plainly as increases without corresponding improvements. The entry point for a mechanical Seiko drifted from under $100 toward $200 and beyond. The name survived. The promise didn't. And here's the structural observation, because that's the real point. While this was happening, the competition arrived from underneath. In 2015, microbrands were barely a factor. The brands that dominate that conversation now largely did not exist. Today, they buy the same movements from the same suppliers, put them in cases with better specifications, and sell direct with no retail overhead. Seiko vacated the bottom of the market and somebody else moved in within a few years. That is the collapse. Not a factory closing, not a bankruptcy. A brand that owned a category walking away from it voluntarily, and discovering the category did not walk away with them. Why all of this at once? It isn't 6 separate decisions. It's one decision with 6 consequences. Seiko chose to move upmarket. That's it. That's the whole story. And it was a rational choice. Margins at $85 are terrible. Grand Seiko has been enormously successful. The upper collections get respect the cheap ones never did. Every individual step made commercial sense at the time it was taken. But the bottom of a range is not just a source of revenue. It's a recruitment channel. The SNK made collectors. The SKX made modders. The cheap Seiko 5 was how tens of thousands of people discovered they cared about watches at all, and a meaningful share of them went on to spend serious money later, often with Seiko. Remove the entry point, and you keep the margin and lose the funnel. The people who would have become customers in 10 years are buying their first mechanical watch from somebody else right now. That's the arithmetic Seiko is running, whether or not they'd put it that way. What that means for you. 3 things. First, if you want a discontinued Seiko, the price is not coming down. SKX, SNK, the older 7S26 references, supply only shrinks. Buy from a seller with a return policy, and understand you're buying a used watch of unknown service history at a premium. Second, check what you're actually getting before you assume. The name on the dial no longer tells you the specification. A watch in the SKX series is not an SKX. Look for the water resistance figure, whether the crown screws down, and whether it carries a diver's rating. Those 3 things are the difference. Third, and this is the practical one, the value that left Seiko didn't leave the market. It moved. Citizen still builds its own movements and sells them cheaply. Orient, which Seiko Epson owns, is doing today what Seiko did 15 years ago at a similar price. And the microbrands are genuinely competitive now. If you're buying your first mechanical watch, the honest answer in 2026 is that Seiko is no longer the automatic recommendation it was for 20 years. That's not an insult to Seiko. It's just where things ended up. Right. 3 quick things before you go. First, tell me in the comments which of these 6 you actually owned, and whether you still have it. If you sold an SKX or an SNK, I want to know what you got for it, because that's real market data, and it's more useful than anything I can look up. And if you think I've been unfair to Seiko here, say so. I'll pin the best argument against me. Second, if this was useful, hit like. It decides whether this reaches somebody standing in a shop this weekend, about to spend $200 assuming they're getting what their mate got for $80. Third, subscribe. No brand sponsorships here. No press samples. No being nice to a manufacturer because they sent me something in a box. Just what the numbers say and what it means for your money. Right? That's your lot. Buy the specification, not the name.